Welcome to Community Unity Now. I'm Bill Morton, president of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce. Trudy Leung, our co-host, couldn't be with us for this show. She's out working her full-time job, but she wishes you all well. Our special guest is property tax specialist Andrea Raila.
I am so glad you invited me today. We've got a lot to talk about. I mean, we've just finished up a big primary in March. And the hottest topic is what? Property taxes. And now we are the state that has the highest level of property taxes in the country, Bill, in the country. And that's not an honor. As a matter of fact, it has cost people to foreclose, not be able to pay their tax bills, go on a payment plan. Even commercial property owners have had to go on a payment plan set up by the treasurer's office. So what was different about this election was that we had an opportunity to vote for the new Cook County Assessor and also for the Cook County Board of Review commissioners. Now, one commissioner in the district too. What happened was like nothing we've seen before in a Democratic primary. A two-term incumbent for 8 years, Assessor Kaegi, lost to a 20-year professional property tax assessment analyst at the Cook County Assessor's office under 3 assessors who left the Kaegi administration to go to Lyons Township and for the first time get elected as the Lyons Township Assessor. Well, he threw his hat in the ring and he became the winner of that primary. He'll take office in December. And it's a big deal because Cook County Assessor Kaegi actually funded his own campaign. He got other dollars, public dollars, but he gave himself $5.3 million to run this race. But the Cook County Democratic Party did not endorse him, nor did they endorse the last Cook County Board of Review commissioner. Both of them have new assessors.
So we're talking about Assessor Pat Hines, who won the Democratic primary for Cook County Assessor in our most previous election. Tell us a little bit about him, please.
He is a career specialist. He is a very no-nonsense public policy guy. As I said, he worked at the Cook County Assessor's office for 20 years under 3 different assessors. He had to actually usher in what is known as underassessment appeals, because when he contacted the Maine Central office and said that 30 brand new homes in my township are not on the tax rolls, they're paying $3,000 in property taxes and they should be paying $25,000, they kept putting it off and not putting them on the tax rolls. So Assessor Hines stepped in and went to the Cook County Board of Review and filed an underassessment complaint that adjusted them. And the homeowners wanted him to do that. They didn't want to wait until the next triennial and then owe all that money. So he's also a volunteer firefighter. And
now, speaking on that, in the election, he did win Norwood Park area.
Yes, he did. And he won the Dunning and Portage Park area. He won Mount Greenwood. All first responders live there. And as a matter of fact, as you know, we had a 32-year-old firefighter that for 45 miles came to my neighborhood in Engine House 59, and he drove truck 47, went to Rogers Park to put out that fire that was started by an arsonist, and lost his life there. And his wife has a 2-year-old and an infant. But if there's anything that I am so okay with on my property tax bill, it's paying for our first responders, paying for our education, and certainly our first responders and, our park district and so forth.
How about the schools?
and the schools, the education, the colleges. But I do think that property taxes, because they fund more than 50% of the schools, we need to find a more reliable, less burdensome tax for educating in our school system. And if other states can do it, we can do it. But we just have this onerous pension system that's been created, very hard to get away from that. But you can't continue to use property taxes and put that into the greatest need that's out there right now is like pension systems. And it's very interesting that there was a Cook County Treasurer study from 1994 to 2024 to show that over those 30 years, property taxes have increased higher than the inflation rate over those 30 years. And it's just unsustainable.
So we've got this pension crisis, which is the big issue. And then we have our public schools being funded by the taxes. Do you believe, what kind of change would you like to see?
Well, I mean, I was an advocate for the millionaire tax that was sponsored by Senator LaShawn Ford. It did not pass this legislative session, but there's an opportunity to hopefully see it further because we have a flat tax rate for everyone. And if I make $25,000 a year, I pay 4.5% on that. And if someone is a millionaire and a billionaire, and by the way, we have 73,582 millionaires that live in Illinois. People are like, that many? We have 16 billionaires. And if they were to have a 3% increase, that would generate $4 billion that could have been poured into the educational system. But it didn't get out of the legislature. The legislature had to vote 71 for it, and it didn't happen this time. It's a shame.
Are we going to try again?
Yes, I think we will. And I think we have to consider changing a flat regressive income tax and considering other sales taxes like consumption taxes. For instance, if a millionaire buys a $500,000 or $2 million or $3 million boat, put a tax on that as a luxury tax. They've looked at that type of thing, and we could raise $2 to $3 billion on luxury goods like that. So there are ways, people are thinking about it, but we are now in a big hole with, collecting $34 billion a year in property taxes, of which a majority of that, 58%, comes out of Cook County. And there's, and then you want to look at the fairness of the taxes. As we know, people are now unable to hang on to their homes because their tax bills have gone up so high. And in particular, the reason why we see that the vote pushed Patrick Hines into that new assessment house is because there was a huge support coming out of the black community. Cook County has these 30 townships. 4 of them are black townships dominated by black homeowners. All 4 of those townships voted for Patrick Hines, 60 to 79%. And then we have our wards, right? 50 wards. Well, 15 of those wards are black homeowners dominated in that community. 13 of those wards went 60 to 79% for Patrick Hines.
So you have an article in Crane's Chicago Business right now as commentary. Opinion: Cook County property taxes have reached a breaking point. I just want to read a piece of this, which is about what you're talking about right here. In Chicago, Hines won 13 of 15 majority black wards, often by margins as high as 69 to 71%, including neighborhoods such as Austin, North Lawndale, Garfield Park, Pullman, South Shore, Roseland, Douglas, Grand Boulevard, and Auburn Gresham.
There you have it. And won predominantly white communities, Mount Greenwood, Norwood Park, Lyons, and so forth. And of course, Kaegi won Oak Park, and he won the lakefront. And you'd wonder why, the lakefront, Edgewater, Rogers Park.
Very progressive.
Very progressive, but huge tax increases. And yet 68% of those 40, 41, 45, 48, 43, 59, 50 went with Pat Hines, but 49, the 49th ward, those voted in lockstep progressives, even though, their tax bills went sky high.
Let's talk about downtown. Let's talk about the Loop. Let's talk about the vacancies in the the high rises and skyscrapers.
It's really...
And the property taxes, and what percentage are they paying?
Well, they don't. They pay a great deal of property taxes, but mostly property taxes comes from the homeowner base. 58% comes from it. Now I know that every single time people ask, why is my tax bill going up so high? It was always Assessor Kaegi saying, it's because I raise the taxes on the Loop buildings and commercial, and then the Board of Review lowers them. And that's why property taxes are too high. That finger pointing is stopped, because that's not necessarily the complete truth. When COVID came, Kaegi gave a 8% across the board reduction to all residential homes, even the McMansions. So one family had a tax bill that was $200,000. It's on a 20,000 square foot mansion. They bought it for maybe 28 million, and they got a like a $15,000 or $16,000 tax break because of that 8% cut. And those cuts were shifted over onto commercial. Somebody has to pay for that.
So there's a table. And when somebody gets a break, others have to pay more.
Right. And so we have a distressed Loop area. You know that we have still very high vacancy rates in the Loop and in the River North area. We're trying to get them to repurpose these buildings and put them into residential housing, and we're giving all these incentives, like the incentives that they give the Bears. Let's lower your property taxes, stay in Arlington, right? Don't go to Indiana or anywhere else. We're thinking that our elected officials, our public policy advocates, are thinking of how do we get these things repurposed, put into the residential mixture, get them back on the tax rolls, because you can't just tax vacant offices. They just don't have the money. They're not getting any income. And that can't happen fast enough. But they're thinking of giving a 20%, if you give 20% of your building to affordable housing in the Loop, you would get a tax break in some manner, property tax break. But that has really shifted things. And so we see more and more homeowners having to take the greater burden of the property taxes because you're not getting it from the commercial sector at this time.
And this is completely going to shift elections. Just an example, if the Bears leave the city of Chicago or the state of Illinois, how's the mayor going to do?
It is going to be a game changer if that happens. I mean, I'm really disappointed that we didn't invest in the Bear Stadium, do whatever it needed to increase those seats. Those seats needed to be, we have the lowest number of seats in the Bear Stadium than any football stadium in the nation. I think, we're capped at like 60,000 seats. That's just not what people are looking for. They need a larger one. Now, they are remodeling that for the hockey team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we'll keep them in Arlington because they voted that out just last week, just Friday. They voted, or Thursday, they voted to give them a big property tax break to continue to consider Arlington. They've bought those acres and they want it, developed. And, the city will still get some revenue. They're talking about letting the city have some of that revenue because we lost the Bears. They had a 30-year lease with us.
And there's a drop in the property taxes, but it also stimulates the local economy. It brings more people around the area.
Yeah.
The shops are getting more sales, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. And hopefully, that will happen with, the team taking over the Bears stadium. Everybody's scrambling to try to find revenues, right? But if we continue down the road of only the most regressive property tax system, you know, it's not based on your ability to pay. People have paid into it for decades. They've paid sometimes the same amount that they could sell their home for. So it's on, you know, we have to get the political courage to do something about changing the income tax mixture and the revenue mixture to keep our people here, to keep our homeowners here. And the foreclosure rates are the highest, by the way, in those 4 townships that I mentioned that went for Patrick Hines. And in the communities that we looked at, Austin, West Garfield, the property taxes were triple digits. In West Garfield Park alone, the average increase in West Garfield Park was 130% increase.
This is according to your study here.
Yeah, well, the study is from the Training, Research, and Advocacy and Education Network, TRAEN. They put this together. It was a bird's eye view of looking at a predominantly white neighborhood, predominantly black neighborhood, and then seeing what happened here. And it was very interesting to note that there was the Austin community, which is 66% African American, and we looked at the Portage Park and Dunning community, 54% white.
Mm-hmm.
And
let's pull up that if we can, the Dunning townhomes with reductions.
right,
While
and
we're
there's a
discussing
map
this.
there. So that is the Dunning area, that is this square. And then you have the homes around it. That's in the larger Portage Park area. It's really the Portage Park area. And for the Dunning homes, now this is in reassessment 2024. Everyone received their reassessment notice in Chicago. And if they didn't file and get a reduction, they saw those tax increases on their 2025 property tax bills. So they're still reeling with these large tax bills. And when we looked at this community, we saw that 80 of those townhomes, there's 89 of them, but 80 of those townhomes were actually reduced from 2% all the way down to 30%. And it wasn't because they did a mass tax appeal. They were reduced because of the valuation model that is used supposedly to make sure that everyone gets fairly assessed. It's a regression model that the assessor calls the formula. But for that community with 89 townhomes, 90% of them got reductions, 5 got no change at all, and then 5 others went up a bit. But all around them, as you can see on the map, they had increases of the average of 18% or 38%, 16% or 21%. Those were the average increases. So why that little...
What is special about that blue square?
What would normally we would see, right now that blue square gave us about 16, I believe, sales. Those sales had increased. They had moved from like 300,000 and upwards on these sales that went back from 2024, 23, 22, and 21. We looked even in 20. Those sales should have been put into this formula, and then it was clear that they should have increased at least, 5 to 12%, or even in some cases 30%. They all received these massive reductions. What does that look like? We'll show a tax bill for one of these properties that received this massive reduction. The property tax bill is here.
There we go. Can we look at that property tax bill, please?
The one that went down. And this tax bill is from Dunning. Mm-hmm. And you can see it's $1,800 less. Many of them were $2,000 to $1,000 less. Then you have, and I don't know if she has...
Let's stay on this one.
Okay.
Let's stay on this one. We're talking about the 2024 second installment property tax bill, Cook County electronic bill for Dunning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's put that one on the screen there. where it says, what?
$1,811 less than in 2023. But the Chicagoland area in 2024, we all got reassessed. And most of us did see increases in our property tax bills. My property tax bill went from $14,000 to $18,000. I'm putting up my house for sale next year. I cannot afford it, and I will, live in a condo on the lakefront, hopefully. But the point I'm making is that it's an outliner that Dunning got these type of reductions where the bills went down by $1,800 or $2,000. And, you can see the list of what they pay their bills for. $2,000 went to the Board of Education, but the prior year they paid $3,000 to the Board of Education. So, it just doesn't make any sense. For the city of Chicago, the community college, this house paid $128. Now it's down to $86. But that was a sizable reduction in the educational. It's $1,000.
Is this the second one?
Yes.
Let's look at the second one, please.
She would have to roll it down to the next one.
Okay.
And
so go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that the tax bill went down $1,879, but $1,000 was removed from the Board of Education.
Okay.
And we have about 10 of those tax bills as an example that we could read through. But I want to also mention what happened in the Austin community and on those tax bills.
Okay.
Now, in the Austin community, which we have samples hopefully on the show on your screen, the Austin community received huge increases like West Garfield. West Garfield by far was some of the highest. And the Tribune covered them. The Tribune talked about the Austin community and how large these tax bills came in. And they had a great Tribune story about it.
When was the article?
It was in February.
Okay.
And it was A.D. Quigg and the Injustice Watch that put that article together. It was a long article. And, we had people that were so upset with the increases. As you know, it was the ministers that came out, right?
And what you're referring to is the property tax bill barbecue on the west side.
Right.
That is now famous.
Yes, absolutely. 30 ministers came together and burned their tax bills. And that news swept over a new assessor because of that. But this particular tax bill in the Austin community, it went up $5,900 more. And you look over here, and yes, it was looked on the lower side, but nonetheless, even if it was on the low side, when you assess things under value, now remember we talked about there were underassessments that were so grave that Patrick Hines had to take action and go and file an underassessment appeal at the Board of Review. I took action as a homeowner and filed at the Board of Review for a 30-unit property in Wrigleyville that the market value on these 30 units in combined should have been about $23 million in the reassessment year, and was dropped to $6 million. And we're talking about a 30-unit where the condos sell for $600,000 and $700,000, and the penthouse sold for $2 million. And so we found a couple of these that were in Hyde Park and in Wrigleyville, and we had to file underassessment complaints to put them on the tax roll, as Patrick Hines did. But that underassessment, even if it happens in the African American communities or the black and brown communities, they shouldn't be penalized for being underassessed or undervalued with triple-digit increases in their tax bills. You got to get it right. If you're given 2 terms, 8 years, you got to get the assessments correct. But this was very egregious, and we saw tax bills moving from $2,000 to $6,000, $3,000 to $7,000 in the Austin and Garfield Park area.
I remember when Fritz Kaegi first got elected, he was like, "Oh, this is Herculean task, and I don't have the programs, I don't have the staff, and all of these kind of things. I'm looking at the Cook County Assessor's AVM, the formula, and you're not going to be able to see this, but it's just computer code. It's just the back end of a website. It looks like, it's very, very hard to decipher. So now that Fritz Kaegi is not going to be Cook County Assessor, we have about a minute left. What's happening now?
I think that we're going to usher in a top-notch professional who's going to oversee that office. And by the way, that office has a $43 million budget. It is understaffed, but I don't think it had a good administrative leader. And so a lot of people left, including Patrick Hines, who was a 20-year career assessment official. And I think we're going to see a great turnover, and I think we're going to also see an assessor, Patrick Hines, that advocates for the public policies that we need. For instance, foreclosures. Foreclosures are dominating the Black and brown communities. You can integrate that into your assessment formula to be kinder and gentler to those homeowners, and also put in a crime index, which is not in this code. There's nothing in here that talks about a crime index. That does depress values. And especially if you don't have any Walgreens, you don't have food deserts, you have schools closing, Bill. Mm-hmm. Those should be factored into these formulas so that the community that we saw in Austin and West Garfield and in other townships see triple digits on their tax bills, triple increases. It's just, it's a burden that the least and most vulnerable people have because they don't acquire their wealth the way white homeowners do. They inherit that wealth, they build that wealth up in their homes, and in this is not building wealth and stabilizing our communities. So I'm very positive. I'm looking forward to working under that administration, and I think we're going to see a light at the end of the tunnel. I hope.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Andrea Raila.
Thank you for having me out.
Cook County property tax specialist, and we got down. We broke down the numbers and the geography and the formula as much as we could. And this has been Community Unity Now. Thank you very much. Bill Morton, President of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of Trudy Leong, Administrator of the Rogers Park Chamber of Commerce, we will see you next time.